Hello everybody. It is now a week later. Well, it's not. It's actually a day later since I filmed my last video, but I have time right now. I probably won't have time in a week, so I'm just gonna do this today because I have the day off. So this video, one of my friends actually asked me to make, and he messaged me and he was like, hey, you talked about in your last video that you made paper, which I showed everybody last time. If you didn't remember, this is the paper that I made. And he was like, I can't be the only like crazy recycling friend that you have that wants to know how to make paper. So would you make a video and show me? He's like, basically he just asked me to make a video showing how I make paper. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I want to preface this by saying that this was not my idea for making paper. I don't use a traditional decal. I still like, I try to iron them after. I have not ironed these yet, so they're still kind of like wrinkly. I watched, oh gosh, I need to figure out how to say her name before I continue this. I had to do a little research on how to say her name, and I'm gonna butcher it, and I'm so sorry. Gittemary. Anyway, I watched her video. She's a zero waster that I have been following for a couple of years now, but I watched her video on how to make or how to recycle paper at home or make your own paper at home. And I too did not have a decal, so I used an embroidery hoop with cheesecloth. Because I had an embroidery hoop and cheesecloth was easy to obtain immediately when I needed it, which was over the weekend when I was making paper. I will link her video below because it was her genius that came up with the round paper decal and how to do that and everything. So, but that's gonna be the method that I use, and I'm gonna be using my paper scraps that I've been collecting in my paper scraps cardboard box, and we'll see what color it ends up being. It is kind of a multi-day process because it has to dry overnight, but I'll show you how to make it, and then or how I make it anyway, what I've been doing, and then the finished product once it's dry tomorrow, which will probably be in the afternoon because I have to work all day tomorrow. So that's kind of my plan. And I'm gonna be making a different size than this because I have a bunch of paper, as you can see, at this size. I'm gonna be making some smaller paper that's gonna be easier to send in the mail that I can use for pen paling and writing and just making small little artworks instead of trying to figure out what to do with bigger paper. So that's my plan. The rest of this will be filmed on my phone, so I don't really know what the quality drop is going to look like, but I'm going to show you what I do for recycling my own paper at home, for making craft supplies, art supplies, whatever. Without further ado, let's go. So hello, welcome to my floor. Welcome to the mess behind me. Before I didn't explain, you're gonna need 6 things to do this project. And so I'm gonna tell you what you need right now. The number 1 thing that you need, you're gonna need a blender, okay? But you're gonna need a blender that you don't use for food. And if you have a blender that you're like, I'm willing to donate to the paper making cause, then fine, but get yourself a new food blender, okay? You can thrift a blender. You could probably easily find one on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, you don't need a good blender. My blender is ancient. It works just fine. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be like a 1-speed blender, like fine, but you need a blender. Second thing you're gonna need is a large bowl. I'm using this bowl. The bowl does not have to be designated just for paper making because you can just, well, anyway, I just put it in the dishwasher and I'm gonna call it good and fine. So somebody let me know if that's bad for you, but we also cook with this bowl, but I'm also using it for paper soaking. So it's gotta be a big enough bowl because you're gonna tear up your paper and you're gonna soak it in the bowl for several hours. So you're gonna need an embroidery hoop or a decal. So I make a decal with an embroidery hoop. The size I was using was this one before. In this video, I'm going to be using this little one because I have plenty of paper of the other size and I want smaller paper, but you can use whatever size you have, whatever size you want, doesn't matter. You're going to need cheesecloth, okay, or some kind of mesh that is moldable if you're using an embroidery hoop that will fit into the hoop and be able to kind of like mold, and you can like kind of pull and stretch. You're also going to need paper like that you're willing to get rid of and recycle. I'm using a lot of white envelopes. I'm going to be making like a kind of off-white paper today, probably is what it's going to turn into. You really never know what color you're going to get. That's what I've learned so far with that. So large bowl, cheesecloth, embroidery hoop, paper. You're going to need a blender, and the last thing you're going to need is a bin. I'll be showing you the bin that I have, but you need like a plastic bin or a tin. Before, like over the weekend when I was making paper, I used one of those like bins that you use to like, not bin, it's like an aluminum foil turkey cooking bin that I found in the kitchen and hadn't been used probably for years. So I used that. That worked just fine. You just need something that isn't too long because you're gonna need you're gonna need the water to be high enough that you can put in your decal and scoop up the pulp without it being too a thin layer on the bottom. So you'll want it to have like at least this much, the water needs to be at least this high probably. And so it needs to have tall enough sides but not be too long. It doesn't really matter like how small it is as long as you can fit your decal in and pull it straight out. So those are going to be the 6 things that you need. The paper, the tutorial that I watched, she cut the paper. I don't find that to be necessary. I just rip it into little pieces, like yay big, and throw it into my bucket here. But that's going to be the first step. So you're going to take your paper. I do as much as you want. Basically, like the pulp that you have is going to determine like how many sheets of paper you can make. You can do a lot, you can do a little, it's really up to you. You don't want the paper to be too thin, so you want to make sure that you have enough, but you can't really do like too much. So that's going to be how you start. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip up all of this, and then I'm going to put it in water to soak. I'll probably put the water, I've already ripped up some paper here, but I'll fill the water so there's probably this much space around the rim of my bowl. You can't really have too much water because you're going to be blending it, and the pulp is just going to be how it is. So the water doesn't really matter. You just need to make sure that you're covering your paper enough to soak it. And then when I come back, we will be blending the paper, the soaked paper, in order to make the pulp. But first step, you're just gonna rip up your paper, so you'll just sit and you'll rip, and that'll be what you do. So that's what I'm gonna be spending my next little bit of time on the floor here doing. And next time you see me, it'll be probably 1 or 2 hours later. My paper will be soaked and we will be blending it. All right, well, I'll see you in a couple hours. So it's sometime later. I've ripped all of this paper. I'm gonna go and fill this with water. I'll be back, I'll show you. I also wanted to mention, if you are using envelopes, make sure there is no plastic in them. Cut out all the little plastic windows. Also, receipt paper isn't good. You'll end up getting plastic in that too. I ran into that issue, so wouldn't recommend receipt paper. And also watch out for tape. You will have a real pain blending it, making the paper with all sorts of little plastic pieces in it. So I'll be back, I'll show you it filled with water, and then I'll be back in a few hours to show you, or to start blending it. So here is my soaking paper. You can see that it's all covered with water. I made sure to scrape it all down off the sides too. Yeah, so now we just wait a couple hours. So it's like 1:45 right now, so about 2:45 or 3 I will be blending. Okay, so I got towels and a measuring cup. I will now show you my blender. This guy is my blender. It is a Cuisinart. Good, it's a good brand. Vari-Speed blender. I don't think the speeds work anymore. This is an ancient blender. So I'm gonna plug her in over in the corner over here. Okay, well, that'll work, I guess. So the blender is plugged in. I'm gonna take a towel and just kind of place it on the ground next to the blender. And I'm gonna put the soaked paper right here onto the towel just so that I don't get it all over the floor. I take my measuring cup, just kind of scoop some of the paper water, and then you just put it in the blender. And you don't want to do too much. I like to have more water to paper for the ratio, just because it kind of hurts the blender. I don't know, the blender really struggles with the paper a little bit. It's my experience anyway. So we're just gonna get those little pieces out. All right, put that there. I'm gonna take this, put it next to the blender. Make sure to put your lid on the blender because you don't want paper juice everywhere. And then we're gonna blend it. So I think that looks pretty good. You're gonna take the forbidden smoothie and pour it into your bin. I think this is gonna be pretty. This is gonna be like a gray probably. Also what I found is that it dries a lot lighter than the color that you blend. So when you blend it and you see that color is like not at all what your paper is gonna look like. So just so you know, when it dries, it'll be a completely different color, and you won't really know until like the next day when it's dried. So I'll get a little more paper in there, I think. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the camera to blend the rest of this, and then I'll meet you all back here in just a minute. Okay, so I have my embroidery hoop right here, and I've cut a piece of cheesecloth. So that's gonna get placed right there. This is going to go into the cheesecloth like so. And then I'm just gonna pull it tight and tighten it here at the top. Okay, so this is the part where you take your decal or your embroidery hoop cheesecloth, you place it into the pulp. I like to make sure that all that is out of there. Lift it up, just kind of let it drain for a minute. It's honestly a lot easier with both hands. I struggle with just one hand, but I don't really have a tripod or anything for this, so this is just how we're doing it. And I have my towel set up right here. So I'm gonna place this onto the towel. I have some towels behind me here. I'll take this towel and just press hard into the paper. See, with one hand I'm struggling, but it shouldn't really stick. And you'll just press till you get all that moisture out. Okay, then I'm gonna unscrew this, take out the inner ring, okay, and pop this out with my hand. Oop. Okay, and that's gonna be your little wet piece of paper. The way that I dry them is I have these basket plates But you could really use anything. You could use like a dish drying rack. You could use, I don't know, this is just the method that I found that worked, but you could probably just dry them straight onto a towel or something, and then they have to dry overnight. So I'm gonna make a bunch more of these. I'm gonna use both hands because it's a lot easier. It's really difficult with one hand, but you kind of get the idea, and then I'll kind of show you how I lay them out to dry them, and then next thing is we'll see the finished product tomorrow. Just want to show you all my drying process, all my little tortillas drying on my baskets. They look kind of dark blue right now, but I have a feeling they're going to be super, super pale blue, kind of creamy tomorrow. So we'll stay tuned to see the finished result. Okay, so it's the next day. As you can see, they did dry a lot lighter. So note that the color that it looks wet, again, like it's not going to be the color how it looks when it's dried. It looked a lot more blue when it was wet, and now it looks a lot more kind of off-white, purple, cool tone, blue color. But I'm super excited with how they turned out. Now I'm just going to iron them. Once I iron them, they'll look a lot more like this one here, which is a lot flatter and easier to work with versus this kind of upturned edge. But don't be discouraged. When you see the upturned edges, all you got to do is iron it out. It won't be a big deal at all. I might trim up some of the edges, but I think I'll leave some rough as they are. So it has been quite a number of days now. I haven't had time to film an outro, so I decided that I would do it today because it is my first day off in several days, and decided that I would show you kind of my finished product here. So I showed you before the dried little tortilla looking guys. I did go through actually and trim the edges, as you can see here, so they aren't frayed like they were. I said that I was going to leave several of them untrimmed, and then I got a little bit trim happy, I guess, and I ended up trimming all of them. I've also used some of them for an art project already. I did some painting. I did this little moon with watercolor, and also this little iceberg with watercolor and kind of like a galaxy sky with a paint pen, watercolor, and this gold pen that I have. So what I will say about the paper in terms of different art things you can do with it, I did watercolor them. It does not lend itself very well to watercolor. So there was a lot of using of a hairdryer as well as kind of waiting. It does absorb the pigment very well. As you can see, it's a very pigmented painting, and it bleeds through onto the back. So the back actually looks pretty cool too, kind of galaxy-esque. But I will say that the watercolor was a little bit tricky. I think acrylic is probably going to be my next move, or just pen and ink. You need to find the right kind of pen, of course. I often use a fountain pen, but the fountain pen, because it does have the split where the ink kind of comes down and the paper itself is not smooth, it would snag, I'm pretty sure, because I have used the fountain pen on paper that snags before, and it kind of splatters and splashes everywhere. So I definitely would say like a ballpoint pen or acrylic paint would probably be the best things to use on the paper. So you can do watercolor. I did it, and I'm not displeased with the outcome, so that is an option. But I just wanted to kind of show you what my finished product looked like, and then something that I did end up doing with the paper, so that you don't feel like, all right, well now I have all this dope paper and I have nothing to do with it. So, and I am kind of sending some to some of my pen pals too, and I'm gonna send these little art pieces to some of my pen pals as well, so I'm excited to do that, and I'm excited to send them those. But that was really all I had to share with you. I know the video was like a little janky because I don't really have the proper equipment for filming tutorials and everything like that, and I wanted to make sure that you could see kind of from above what I was doing. Hopefully you got the idea of how to do this art project and what to do, and are kind of able to figure it out. I kind of was piecing it together as I started, but it is really, really fun. It is a really fun project, and it is a great way to save paper that you had going to either landfill or recycling, and a lot of places your paper doesn't really end up getting recycled anyway, so it's a great way to make sure that the paper that you have that would otherwise be going to recycling or the landfill, it's a great way to use the paper that would otherwise probably end up in landfill and make it into something beautiful that you can send to your friends, your family, loved ones, or keep for yourself, or sell, or whatever it is that you want to do with it. It's a really great, like, zero waste, like, hobby. So hopefully you were able to get something from this video and that you're able to try this paper making project, and I hope that you enjoyed the little tutorial, as janky as it might have been. Thank you for watching, and I will see you when I have another idea. Hopefully I'll find some time to be able to sit down and make YouTube videos, because I like making YouTube videos and sharing my little tiny niche tidbits of knowledge with the people who watch them. So have a great rest of your day, and I will see you when I see you. Bye.